Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Big Four podcast. We got football on hand for you today. So let's start in Lincoln, Nebraska, where a lot of criticism has come upon Scott Frost, but he has been extended for at least one more year. Now that the terms of the contract have been leaked a little bit, it looks like he's going to be taking a pay cut, similar to what Harbaugh has. And it's going to be more incentive-based contract. So
no, they what they've been saying is that I don't know if this is what they're saying to try to make it look better, or if it's true. But they've been saying they basically just moved money around. He's taking less money, so then you can give more money to assistants.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I understand people are saying that they've made some progress and they're competing with some good teams like, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State. But the bottom line is your record says you are. They've been a complete joke this year. They find ways to lose games. That's on the head coach. He should have been fired.
And no, he should not have been. He should not have been fired. It's what, his third year, his fourth year. I mean,
you got to give him 5, 6, 7.
At some point, there needs to be a result. And it's been unacceptable what he's done so far.
No, it's only his third year. It's only his third year. They've lost every game they've lost. They've lost by one possession. Fourth year, every game they've lost by one possession, except for the Ohio State game, which they lost by 9. So it takes.
You are. Your record says you are.
But you can see the progress they're making. They're right there. He's about to get them over the hump, and they're going to start competing for West championships. You got to buy into Scott Frost because they were in the dump when he came in, and he has to rebuild this entire program. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes 4, 5, 6 years to get it done.
Well, your record says you are. They're 3-7.
They're the best 3-7 team in the country because they're the only 3-7 team in the country. Listen, I like what Scott Frost has been doing. He's improved. He has made Nebraska more Big Ten worthy. Before he got there, they were more of a Big 12 team, and it's taken years for them to really get to that level physically in the trenches. And I think they've done that a little bit better. The offensive line's been a joke this year. That's one of the main reasons why they've sucked pretty much. The defense has been dominant for the most part. It's been one of the best units in the country, and they played great against Ohio State. We'll get to that game later. But I would have given him another year, too. I would have given him another year. They've made a lot of progress, but if you don't win next year,
he's been fired.
No, he hasn't been fired. But if I was the AD, I would have also given him another year. I know it's a new AD, and he might have other guys in mind. I think if you don't make a bowl game next year, that's a problem. You got to at least make a bowl game next year. There's no doubt about it. All right, talk about this rumor. Mel Tucker possibly a big extension coming from Michigan State. It's still a rumor at this point, but Jesus, that's dangerous.
Jesus Christ.
Chris is flashing his high beams at people.
I was trying to see the road because they have random piece of construction in the middle of the road.
Anyway, but reactions to this? If any reactions at all, it's still a little early on.
I mean, this is what we expected him to use these rumors to get a pay raise, and he deserves it. And good for him. Hopefully, Michigan State can keep him because the Big Ten's better when all these teams are good.
I don't read anything into it. It's a rumor.
You don't respect my sources.
I mean, some random Michigan State fan who's on the radio. I mean,
he's got a lot of.
I'm sure he does. Yeah.
He took his tour of the new facility. Well, it's not yet built yet.
But all this is Tucker using this to get more money from LSU.
Listen, Mel Tucker never wanted to leave. Okay, he likes it at Michigan State. He has things at Michigan State that he'll never have at LSU. Yes, LSU's got big advantages over Michigan State, but he will never have the power that he has at Michigan State. He is the man. He can do basically whatever he wants. At LSU, he's going to have to answer to the AD. He's going to have to answer to boosters, and there is no, there's no room for a bad year. At Michigan State, he's already a god. All right, and he's going to have his brand new facility that was built specifically for him and for his players and for his staff. He's a fit at Michigan State. Now, in a couple of years, maybe he's settled in. Maybe he wants to go somewhere else. But I think he's just settling in at Michigan State. He's got a family. I think he was never really serious with these negotiations. At least that's my opinion. I think he was always using them for leverage to try and get a bigger salary, a bigger assistant coach pool. And yeah, I mean, that's what I think has happened.
Well, nothing's happened then, so.
Well, we'll see. All right, let's move on to some game results. We'll start in West Lafayette, where Michigan State, speaking of Michigan State, they lose to Purdue. Another top 5 upset for the Boilermakers. So a reaction from this game.
Yeah, I think it was a matter of time at Michigan State. They were getting some bounces to go their way. I don't think they weren't getting lucky, but they were not playing like an 8-0 team. So I just think it was time coming. They weren't going to go undefeated, but I think they really now need a fight to try to make a New Year's Six game, and that would be a huge deal for Mel Tucker recruiting wise, and just a huge deal for the university.
Yeah, tough loss. I think we all saw it coming. Just a great Purdue played really well. Aiden O'Connell, whenever he plays a good team, he turns into Tom Brady. And against bad teams, he's Sam Darnold. So I really don't understand him. He's the hardest quarterback to figure out in the country. But Purdue, they find a way to get it done. Michigan State, you saw it coming after the emotional win. Doesn't really change anything in terms of them controlling their own destiny, because they still do. Obviously, beating Ohio State is not going to be an easy task, but it doesn't really change anything when it comes to controlling your own destiny in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I just want to give Purdue credit because I think they played a great game. And I got to give my guy, Jeff Brom, some credit, because some of the stuff they run at Purdue is not being run at any other program. They have some NFL type things they have in his offense, and it's some of the things that they run are just, you can't defend it. Michigan State is not going to be able to defend it for sure. Nobody's going to be able to defend it. Those back shoulder throws that he's making, nothing you can do on those. Now, when David Bell's running wide open in the fourth quarter 5 straight times, that's a problem, obviously. But for doing a great game plan, they executed. Defense wasn't great, but they came up with 2 big 3-and-outs in the second half. Now on to Michigan State. This was by far the worst game of the year. We played like garbage, did not play well enough to win. And I told you, I don't think it's a great football team. And I think the defense, we've had some injuries, and that's not an excuse. The team has been much worse on defense. And maybe that's the level of competition. Obviously, Indiana doesn't have some great offense. Rutgers doesn't have some great offense. But at least, look at the Western Kentucky game. Yeah, we gave up 31 points, but we held them to field goals a lot in the red zone. And we haven't been able to do that. Against Michigan, it felt like the only time Michigan stopped was when they stopped themselves. And then this game, we just couldn't get any stops in the red zone. We were terrible. And when you can't get stops in the red zone and you give up yards, that's the recipe for a terrible defense. And we are now dead last in passing yards allowed per game in the country. So, the blueprint is out. Maryland has the blueprint. Ohio State has the blueprint. Penn State has the blueprint. Those are 3 great passing teams, and they're going to be passing it a lot in Michigan State, because the one thing we can do is stop the run, and the one thing we can't do is stop the pass. So this team is I don't think they're that great offensively. Offensively, we're not good enough to carry our weight if the defense is that bad. The offense is very good, but I don't think it's probably a top 25, top 30 offense. It's not something great. It's not Ohio State, not even close. And defensively, we're atrocious. So, Mel Tucker's going to have to work his magic, because some things are going to have to change, especially in the secondary. All right, so let's move on to Ohio State goes to Nebraska, and they pull it out 26-17. So reaction from this game.
I think obviously offensively it was a little bit concerning, just in the fact that I feel like Ryan Day likes it can be stubborn in his play calling. When he believes something should work and it doesn't work, he doesn't go away from it. And I mean, it's probably his biggest strength, but it's also his biggest weakness. You saw that in this game. But I want to hats off to the defense. 17 points out. I know it's Nebraska, but still, the transformation from the beginning of the year to now, this defense has been incredible. And it's now officially a top 15 defense in the country. They still have some room to improve, but I mean, with the offense you have, you don't have to be a great defense. You just have to be you just have to be a good solid defense, and that's what they've been doing. It's been a lot of growth, and it's been impressive.
No, I mean, Ohio State was bailed out in this game. There's no way that the Big Ten was going to allow Ohio State to lose this game. And what do you know? Like 3 or 4 minutes left in the game, Nebraska has a third down. They throw the ball back.
Chris, that's why Purdue won too, because the Big Ten couldn't risk Ohio State not coming out of the East.
Oh, listen, I mean, they go past the sticks, and the Nebraska receiver gets mauled. I don't know how you missed the call. It was one of those blatant calls, and they miss it. Maybe the result of the game is different. I don't know.
You actually think Martinez would have marched his team down the field?
Listen, I don't know. I take nothing out of this game because Nebraska plays everybody close and loses.
Well, here's what I'll say. I think Ohio State, this was a type of game I think they needed to play. You can't blow. You're not going to blow everybody out. They played a similar game against Penn State. I think Nebraska's a talented team. Yes, they're 3-7. They're the greatest 3-7 team in the history of college football. And defensively, yes, Ohio State probably should have ran the ball more. But I think what Ryan Day saw was those 2 D tackles that Nebraska has and those linebackers. They stopped the run well. They're not great against the pass. And I don't think Stroud played very well. And that obviously didn't help Ohio State. And then on the other side, I mean, every defensive line looks good against that Nebraska offensive line. I mean, Michigan State had 7 sacks against them. Ohio State was dominating on the line of scrimmage. That's something Nebraska's going to have to look at, obviously. I mean, it's a joke. They have one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen. And this is coming from a Michigan State fan. And I thought the play calling in the fourth quarter was a little questionable for Nebraska. Especially not going for that fourth down at the end, and then Ohio State just runs the clock down. I mean,
that was bad.
You've got to play to win the game, as Herm Edwards would say. You can't play not to lose. You're not getting the ball back. Ohio State is not getting you the ball back. They're the best offense in college football. You can't assume you're getting the ball back in that situation. But, yeah, I mean, it was a good win. It was a good win because anytime you go on the road against the team, and yes, the fans were still there. It was a tough environment, and they found a way to win. So,
you know what that game told me the most? That Georgia is so much better than everybody else.
Now Georgia loses that game.
Yeah.
All right. Michigan defeats Indiana. It wasn't really a game. Indiana's kind of fallen off, but they don't have a pulse anymore. But Michigan still finds a way to get it done. So reactions from this game.
Yeah, at this point, Michigan's goal is just to get to the Ohio State game with a chance to win the Big Ten East. I mean, that's got to be the goal: is stay alive, and that's what they did. So hats off to them. They won the game, stayed alive, and they got to get it. Harbaugh especially has to get it, so that game means something. He has to. If he doesn't, I mean, if that game ends up not meaning anything, and Michigan finally beats Ohio State, it's like. It's one of those things where you still have to take. I mean, he finally beat his rival, but I mean, it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. And they got to get it to the point where that game means something.
Yeah, I mean, do what you had to do. Defense was pretty good. I mean, the first quarter, they were very good, but they figured it out. The rest of the game, Indiana's offense is terrible, though, so I don't really take anything out of that. And, the offense did what they had to do. Cade managed the game like he always does. No turnovers, easy throws, ran the ball well. And, of course, the only thing I'm upset about is the fact that J.J. McCarthy is still getting snaps. The first snap he comes into the game, it's 3rd and 10 at midfield. So obviously, the first thing, or instinctually, you want to put JJ in that spot because that makes sense. So we'll throw him in. And this is a 0-0 game in the first quarter. He rolls to the right. It's just like it's a long development play. It's like 8 seconds into the play, still rolling to the right. Jumps and fires the ball in the middle of the field into like 7 guys. Should have been picked. Gets lucky. So that was his first quarter snap. That was really impressive. Throws a pick later in the game. He's reckless with the football, and they continue to put him out there, and it's a disgrace and an indictment on the coaching staff.
Well, Chris, remember when they played Northern Illinois, he made that ridiculous play, and I told you it would have been picked against any Big Ten team.
Well, not Indiana. Because he threw it and they got it down. So
yeah, well, Indiana is they don't have a pulse right now. They've given up on their season pretty much. Listen, I bet you Michigan fans don't want to hear this, but think about it this way: if Michigan holds on to beat Michigan State, they'll probably beat Penn State this week. At least that's what
they're number 2 team in the country right now. If they beat Michigan State,
they'd be up there, and then there's a good chance they'd be 11-0 going into that Ohio State game, last game of the year.
They'd be in no matter what.
And then maybe Ohio State loses to some team, and then, well, I guess they don't have a single conference loss, so that doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. They'd be in no matter what.
Here's the thing. Michigan has still got everything to play for, and obviously it was a disappointing loss, but their fans seem to be back and energized after Michigan State lost. And I think Michigan's a great football team. I think they're better than Michigan State. I think they proved it on the football field. They just choked. This team is going to roll Penn State tomorrow, and they're going to give Ohio State a run for the money. I truly believe that. This Michigan team is very good. They have everything that you need to do to win big. Now, the problem is, obviously, their biggest problem is defense, and I think Michigan State exposed that a lot. But, one game, you never know what can happen. At home, I know it'll be probably 50-50 Buckeye fans, but still at home.
Here's the thing. I mean, they usually go into that, or they have in the past gone into that Ohio State. Listen, I'm in no way saying they're going to beat Ohio State. They're not going to. But they've gone into that game with top-tier defenses that just get shredded, and their offenses are not nearly good enough to keep up with them. This is, I think, the best offense they've had under Harbaugh. The problem is their defense is terrible. But if they're going to get shredded either way, maybe the offense will keep up this year, or attempt to keep up, keep it a respectable score.
Well, is K going to outduel C.J. Stroud?
No, C.J. Stroud has guys running wide open every play. So.
All right. So let's move on to the Big Ten scoreboard. Let me get that out real quick here. 84-36. Oh, my goodness.
It's a good team.
Almost up 50 on Western Michigan. All right, the Big Ten scoreboard. Big Ten. Illinois upsets Minnesota. Another Minnesota-esque loss.
Yeah, that's classic. That's classic.
Yeah, it's as classic as it comes. Another Bowling Green for Minnesota. Wisconsin just kills Rutgers 52-3.
They're looking good. They're looking real good.
They are certainly the favorites, it seems like, to win the West at this point. Penn State takes care of Maryland. And Iowa with a 17-12 win over Northwestern. It's like what did I say? I said the game was going to be 3-2 last week or so. 17-12. So any reactions from these games?
I mean, classic Minnesota. Wisconsin is the team that I think might be the scariest team in the Big Ten right now, outside of Ohio State.
They're scarier than Ohio State. Oh, okay.
5 wins. What do they got? 5 wins in a row since losing to Michigan. They're gonna come out of the West. I don't think there's anybody that's gonna be able to. I mean, I guess Minnesota still plays them head to. Oh, I guess there's a bunch of 4 teams at 4-2, and they still have to play Minnesota. But I think Wisconsin. This is the team that comes out of the West. Another decent win for Penn State. Goes to 6-3. They're probably going to end up with 8 wins. Now they might only end up with 7 wins. They have to play Michigan State and Michigan. But decent win. Maryland obviously loses because they suck. They go to 5-4. They might not make a bowl game, Chris. I mean, it's going to come down to that
Ridiculous.
Rutgers game. That's why they make the bowl game.
That is ridiculous.
That's going to be the biggest game of that weekend. It's not going to be Ohio State, Michigan. It's going to be Rutgers, Maryland for a bowl game.
Right.
And then good win for Iowa, I guess. A win's a win at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa is just falling off the wagon completely. That's my biggest takeaway from this week. I knew I've known for a couple weeks that Wisconsin was coming around and they were going to be the favorite, but really, I mean, just falling off the cliff. I mean, they've gone way off the deep end.
That's what happens when you have a bottom. It's worse. It's one of the worst offenses in the country. I mean, and Northwestern's rounding into form a little bit too. They always play a lot better at the end of the year. But yes, Iowa's offense is atrocious. There's no other way to put it. It's been atrocious the whole season. They were just bailed out by turnovers, and that's probably not going to happen. Penn State, that's a nice win. Maryland's on the road. That's always a tough game. Yeah, I mean, Maryland doesn't draw very well in home games, but it's still away from home, on the road, hotel, bus to the game. You know, you never know sometimes in those situations how you're going to play. And Penn State found a way to win. And I think I got to give Franklin a little bit of credit. He's kind of stabilized his team a little bit. You know, after those comments after the Illinois loss, you know, people thought they'd lose by 40 in Columbus, and they keep it close there. And then who else do they play after that? Yeah. So then they had a bye, or no, they didn't have a bye. That was October 30th. And then last week they played Maryland. Okay. And listen, this is their season coming up against Michigan. Really, they win this game. I don't want to say it's a successful season, but the season's back on track. You know, back on the rails a little bit. Wisconsin, yeah, Rutgers has shown they don't really have the horses to keep up with most of these teams, but still an impressive win for Wisconsin. Illinois, got to give Big Bert some credit, man. I mean, as bad as Illinois looked at times, they found ways to win their type of football game, and we said they have talent there. This was basically the same team that went to a bowl game a couple years ago, and they played pretty decent last year. So it's not overly surprising. And Minnesota, if Minnesota can't run the football, then they're going to lose. They don't have the playmakers, and Tanner Morgan's a shell. He's a shell of his former self.
Terrible.
All right. What's next? We got pick a game that you want to talk about.
Where is it? How about my guy, Will Rogers, getting absolutely screwed by his own goddamn team? Absolutely screwed. He let him down the field in it was 37 seconds or something like that to get a field goal to tie the game. And the guy missed it by 80 yards. The thing was, he kicked it farther to the left than he did straight down the field. It was a joke, absolute joke. Will Rogers, once again, 417 yards passing with 4 TDs. Put him in the Heisman. Put him in the Heisman race. He's a dog. He's carrying Mississippi State, and he got absolutely screwed by his own team. As Mike Leach said, there's an open tryout right now down at whatever the hell their field's called for a kicker right now. That's how bad their kicking sucks. And Will Rogers gets jobbed once again.
I'll just talk a little bit about the A&M Auburn game. Nobody was really talking about the playoff implications of that game, but having Auburn eliminated from the playoff race is huge if you're a playoff contender.
Well, A&M's in it still.
Well, A&M doesn't control their own destiny. Auburn did. They could have beaten Bama and won the SEC, and they would have been in 2 losses. So if you're a playoff contender, that's huge. It's huge for Michigan, it's huge for MSU, huge for Ohio State, Cincinnati. Everybody who's contending for a playoff spot, that Auburn loss is huge. So I just wanted to make sure that was put out there today.
Yeah, I just want to talk about this Florida loss.
Oh.
I didn't put this as a topic, but my God. Dan Mullen. Florida was 19.5-point favorites. And they went up to Columbia, South Carolina, and just got housed. It wasn't even close. Florida didn't even get off the plane or the bus or whatever the hell you want to call it.
They took a train.
And listen, Florida, it's off the rails. It's off the rails. I said he's not a good coach last year. I said he wasn't a good coach. Yeah, but it's worse than that because at least last couple of years he's beaten these teams. He's beaten South Carolina. He's beaten Kentucky for the most part. He's beaten Tennessee. His problem has always been beating Georgia, and he did it last year, and then lost to LSU, and that ruined the season basically. So I mean, I don't know what you do. I think you got to get rid of him. I don't think they have an option. There's just no way you can bring him back consciously and think, oh, not only is he going to get this thing back on the rails, not only that, but we think he's going to be able to compete with Kirby Smart in Georgia because that's what the expectation is in Florida. The expectation is to be one of the top 10 programs in the sport. That's the expectation, and they're not going to get there with him. So you can give him another year if you want. I just think it's a lame duck situation. And I think what do they say? Oh, Dan Mullen's they got to fire some assistants and bring in some new ones. No one's going to want to go there. No one is going to want to go to a lame duck situation. No good coordinator is going to go down there. It's not going to happen. So they're screwed. I think they're screwed. I think they got to get rid of them. I don't think they have a choice at this point. Unless you think waiting until next year is a better option than it is this year. But,
well, his comments about recruiting certainly didn't help him either.
Yeah, they should go after Urban Meyer.
I mean, obviously they'll give Urban a call. I mean, I don't know who you go after. I mean, do you take a chance on Matt Campbell? I mean, it's a tough situation because you got LSU, LSU's number one in the pecking order. I would assume USC's number two. Florida might be number two.
If you're Florida, if you're Florida, do you want your job? Like, do you want to be searching for people when you have 3 or 4 big jobs already that you're competing with? I mean, you want to go into the offseason being the number one job people want.
I mean, all you're doing by delaying it to the next offseason is, I guess, maybe looking to see if other big time coaches emerge. But I mean, I don't think.
No, I agree, but at the same time, if you hire some guy that's not right for the job because your top 2 or 3 people took so-called bigger jobs, now you're screwing yourself for the next years because you can't fire them.
Yeah, well, you can't think about it that way. If you think about it that way, then you're screwed. You got to be proactive. You got to go out and find your coach, find a new coach. I think we all thought Dan Mullen was a good hire. It hasn't really panned out. It's a little similar to Harbaugh. He hasn't had the hype that Harbaugh had. So, maybe they go out and they get Mike Leach. That'd be a great hire. All right. So the playoff rankings, a little controversial for some people. Nothing really changed a lot besides Michigan State with the loss falling down to 7. Michigan above them at 6 now.
Here's my problem is that I don't think the committee uses a consistent logic when it comes to doing the rankings. I have no problem with where individual teams are on its own. It's when you put it all together where it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Why
for example,
Ohio State and Michigan.
That's what I was about to say. How can you put Michigan ahead of Michigan State? Presumably because they said they thought they were a better team, and that head-to-head win doesn't matter. But keep Oregon ahead of Ohio State when overwhelming majority of people would say Ohio State's looked like the better team ever since that game. And I don't care. If they putting Oregon ahead of Ohio State, I think it is fair. I mean, Oregon beat Ohio State, and I don't think you can really argue with it. But the problem is, how do you not? The same logic there should then have to be applied to the Michigan State ranking.
Exactly. And beyond that, I still have a major problem with Oklahoma being an 8. I think that's a complete joke that they're not in the top 4. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but they'll have their chance. It starts this week. I think the committee's waiting for a signature win with Oklahoma, and I think they consider Michigan's win at Wisconsin a signature enough win for that to matter at this point.
Well, here's the thing. I also think they build out the back end of the rankings to fit the front end of the rankings. Like,
yep,
that's why Wisconsin's ranked. That's why Minnesota's ranked. I mean, it was the same thing with a bunch of the SEC schools last week when like Mississippi State was ranked 17th. It was just so they could put Alabama at 2. And now it seems like this week they're putting the Big Ten schools in the back that Michigan played so they can justify why they had Michigan ahead of Michigan State.
Well, here's my problem with the rankings. What did you see from Michigan State on Saturday that you didn't already know? Michigan State have a bad defense. They have a bad secondary. I think we knew that going into the game, and we knew that Michigan State has been lucky all season long. I mean, it's true. There have been 3 or 4 games where post-game win expectancy, Michigan State is on the wrong end of that. They found ways to win. I mean, you can't. Why would you have Michigan State at 3 in the first place last week? That's what I had a problem last week, and I still have a problem with that this week. But my biggest problem is, why didn't you drop them lower? How can you say that Michigan's a better team than Michigan State and not say the same thing about Oklahoma? Or Notre Dame? Well, at least you could say Notre Dame played some bad teams close. But here's the thing. I mean, Michigan State's not that great. I think we're a top 15, maybe top 20 team. I don't think we're number 7 in the country. You could say you respect the win, but then say Michigan's a better team. But how can you say Michigan's a better team and not say Oklahoma's a better team? I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And why would you put us at 3 in the first place when you've seen us play all year long? Did they finally realize, oh, Michigan State isn't good because they lost to Purdue? No, I mean, everybody was picking Purdue last week. It seemed like many people were taking Purdue because we've seen this. We've seen the secondary struggle against great passing offenses. Anyway, I mean, it'll all play itself out for the most part towards the end of the year. Okay, so a quick reaction to Texas Tech hiring a new coach. They hired the McGuire guy. He was an assistant for Aranda at Baylor. So he's a big time high school guy there. He's kind of similar to what Traylor is at UTSA. So, kind of reactions to the hire.
I think it could be a good hire for Texas Tech. If you're Texas Tech, you have to know who you are, and you have to take not a huge risk, but you have to take somewhat of a risk if you want to become competitive in the top end of the Big 12, and especially with Texas and Oklahoma leaving in the next year or two. I think it's a pretty good hire overall, from what I've read at least.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with the high school connection. Obviously, that could be big in Texas, so that was good on the part of Texas Tech. I'm just waiting for this TCU hire. I'm waiting for them to make a move on Deion Sanders.
Sonny Dykes.
No, they're going to hire Deion Sanders. So I'm waiting on that more than the Texas Tech one, but this is a good hire.
Yeah, I like the hire. I generally like the hire. I'm a little concerned about the experience. I know he's been an assistant for a while. He's going to have to hire a pretty good staff, I think. But recruiting-wise, I think he'll do a pretty good job there. And, considering you fired Wells, I think Wells is, he lost that back game to Kansas State. He was on a decent track. It was a pretty good hire, a little under the radar. But I think it's a pretty good hire. I know basically the tea leaves have said that TCU is going to hire Sonny Dykes. It's almost a given at this
Their
point.
running back tweeted out that he wanted Deion Sanders.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure he's in the transfer portal. So well, I don't know.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie to you, Chris. I don't know how much say the running back has over.
That's ridiculous. They should hire
who
Deion Sanders.
Well, you know what the running back could do? He can go transfer to Jackson State to play for him. if he really cares that much about playing for him. All right, let's move on to the previews. Michigan on the road at Penn State, a modified whiteout at 12 noon on ABC. So, any predictions for this game?
I think Michigan will win, but I mean the pressure is on Harbaugh in this game. This is probably some of the most pressure he's faced since he's been at Michigan, that he needs to win this game. I mean, I know they're slate favorites. I think 1.5 points is the line right now, but you have to win this game. You have to finally go on the road and get a somewhat big win.
Yeah, I feel like we say this all the time, at least a couple times a year, about how big a game is for Harbaugh. And most of the time, he loses it.
He won against Wisconsin.
He did win against Wisconsin. His first win as a road underdog at Michigan.
As an underdog in general, I believe.
Oh, yes. Anyways, yeah, I think this game goes one of two ways. Either Michigan blows the doors off Penn State or Penn State wins a close game. Michigan, unless they're playing Nebraska, really doesn't win close games. People find a way to choke. But I do think they are the better team, so they have a chance to blow them out. Bottom line is, though, there's a lot of pressure on Michigan here. We've seen some Michigan teams a lot of pressure going into certain games, and they find ways to lose. And I expect them to find a way to lose. They'll probably outplay Penn State. Penn State will win the game at the end, even though Sean Clifford's a choker.
Michigan's going to win, and they're going to win comfortably. Here's the thing about Penn State is they're a one-trick pony. They are a passing offense, and I think the way you can get Michigan is on the ground. Obviously, Michigan's they're not great in the secondary either, but I think they're a lot better against the pass than they are against the run, it seems like.
Well, I think part of it is because they can have a somewhat decent pass rush, so they have times where they can get to the quarterback.
Well, they do have a great pass rush, but the thing is, the two safeties are good. The problem is we have the two worst quarterbacks in the entirety of Division I, so that's a massive problem for the secondary. Yeah,
well, it doesn't matter. They only have to cover a second and a half.
Yeah,
and then the rush gets home. But no, Penn State can't run the ball. They couldn't run the ball on anybody they played this year, basically. So they're going to have to. Clifford's going to have to play great. Michigan they'll be surgical in offense. They'll run the football. They've found some weapons at wide receiver, and they found their passing game. It seems like everybody finds their passing game against Michigan State, but I think Michigan they'll grind it out. They'll play good defense and they'll win the game 27-14. It'll be a relatively close game, and then Michigan will get a touchdown to ice it at the end. All right, move to Columbus. Another Purdue top 10 matchup on the road at Ohio State against the Buckeyes. Preview of this game.
Yeah, just take care of business going into the last 2 weeks of the year when you play Michigan State and Michigan. That's all it comes down to. Take care of business, look good while doing it, and put yourself in position to sweep the Big Ten East.
Yeah, I mean, I think people may be looking at this game saying Ohio State has to play two top 10 teams the next 2 weeks. But the bottom line is, after that win for Purdue, they are not going to show up this weekend at all. I think Ohio State's going to run them out of the building. It's not even going to be remotely close. Purdue will be a complete no-show.
Listen, I think Ohio State's going to win, but I think it's going to be closer than people think. I think Purdue can do some things on offense that not even Ohio State can really do a whole lot with. And this will be a test for Ohio State secondary, because Purdue is probably, I'd say besides Ohio State, they're probably the best pass offense in the conference. They can do a lot of things. Of course, Rutgers can really pass it with Mercino, who's the quarterback's name, Vedral. One read and then throw a pick.
Indiana's a really good passing team too.
With Donovan McCulley.
Yeah,
great team.
Their last scholarship quarterback.
So I think David Bell can give them some issues. Their tight ends are good. They'll give them some issues. They'll move the ball. Ohio State will just do a little bit. They'll be a little bit too much, but I think they'll win by 14, 21. Here's the thing, Ohio State, people saying they're this great team. Yeah, I think they're the second best team in the country, but they've been playing the last 2 games close. I think Purdue's better than Nebraska. I think they're a similar team to Penn State, in my opinion. Well, power ratings wise, a lot of people say that Purdue's better, or that Nebraska's better than Purdue. So I think it'll be closer than people think, but Ohio State will still win. All right. East Lansing, the neon uniforms are out. Michigan State hosting Maryland in a sort of tricky game. I don't know if you want to call it a look ahead game. Maryland comes in. So preview of this game.
Yeah, I think Michigan State will win, but I think this is going to end up being a close game, especially in the first half. Maryland is a tricky team, and after last week's loss to Purdue, who knows how Michigan State's going to respond. And I think they'll end up winning, but I mean, this whole year, they haven't shown that they're a great team. They've shown that they're a good team, and I think this could be another game where you're watching the game, Mike, and you get a little bit nervous come mid-third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're coming off a loss, but I do still think this is a look-ahead game. You go and you have Ohio State on the schedule next week. You can't help but look ahead to that. Michigan State's going to win the game, but I would expect it to be within a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. Maryland can score a little bit, especially with the way they pass the ball. I think they'll be able to score on Michigan State. But on the other hand, Maryland will not be able to stop a nosebleed in the game. So Michigan State will win, but it'll be close.
I actually think Michigan State will win by double digits because I think we'll be able to run the ball with relative ease. With the last several teams we played have pretty good defensive lines. Even Michigan has a decent defensive line. Maryland's defensive line's a joke. It is a MAC level defensive line. I think we'll be able to get some push there. I think Kenneth Walker's going to have a big day. I think we'll be able to get the passing game going a little bit. I'm not worried about scoring points. Defensively, you play zone against little Tulia, whatever the hell his name is. He struggles. He struggles against zone defenses. He's really struggled against Iowa. You don't have to stop him, but get a few turnovers and make life miserable on him. Get to the passer. That's one thing we haven't done either. We were very good at rushing the passer, and it has not really materialized over the past couple of games. We got to get some pressure on him, rattle him a little bit. I think Michigan State wins in the 45-28 range, that sort of thing. Might be close at halftime. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe Michigan State's up 10 at halftime. But I don't think Maryland's built to beat a team like Michigan State at this point. Offensively, yes. Defensively, Maryland's atrocious. All right. Let's go to the picks here. We will start tomorrow, noon, kickoff, Maine at UMass.
I'll take UMass.
I'll go with UMass.
I'm going to take Maine. As Heath so eloquently told us, Rhode Island beat UMass and Maine beat Rhode Island, so that means Maine's better than UMass. So Maine's going to win. All right, Michigan at Penn State.
Actually, I'm changing my pick to Maine.
All right.
Saying ESPN has them as a 56% chance to win the game.
All right, Michigan at Penn State.
Michigan.
Penn State.
I will be taking Michigan. All right, Oklahoma at Baylor.
Oklahoma.
Say Oklahoma.
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 Oklahoma, big. Mississippi State at Auburn.
Mississippi State.
Auburn.
Mississippi State's, what are they, 5-4?
Yep.
Something like that. So
Yeah, they're 5-4. Should be 6-3 if Will Rogers can get screwed by his own goddamn team.
I'm going to take Auburn in a very close one. All right, Rutgers at Indiana. What a game.
I'm gonna take Rutgers.
Rutgers.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Indiana has a pulse. I think Rutgers wins close. West Virginia, Kansas State.
West Virginia. No, Kansas State. Kansas State. Kansas State.
I'll take West Virginia.
I'm going to take Kansas State. I'm off of the West Virginia bandwagon. East Carolina at Memphis.
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 I will be taking the Purple Pirates. East Carolina.
Maybe that's why you're in dead last.
Well, they're only 4.5 point underdogs. East Carolina's a good team this year. Purdue at Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Ohio State. Minnesota at Iowa.
Jesus Christ, what a game. Iowa.
Minnesota.
Jesus. I think Minnesota turns the ball over and Iowa will take advantage. I'm taking Iowa. Miami at Florida State.
Miami.
I'll take Florida. State has it too.
Miami because we beat them. Hold on. All right, Boston College at Georgia Tech.
Where is I'll take Boston College with jerk off back.
Boston College.
I'm going to take Georgia Tech. Maryland at Michigan State.
Michigan State.
Michigan State.
Michigan State. South Carolina at Missouri.
Both these teams suck. I'll take South Carolina.
Missouri. Coming off of South Carolina's kind of an emotional one.
Yeah, I agree. You see all the tweets that Shane Beamer had after the game. It's just all emotional with his family. Missouri's a terrible team, and I think they showed that because they lost to BC. But I'm going to take them this game. Stanford at Oregon State. Another chance for Oregon State to make a bowl. They've squandered the last two games.
Oregon State.
Do they get it done?
Oregon State.
Oregon State. Texas A&M and Ole Miss.
Texas A&M.
Same. This is like the same game as last week with the Auburn A&M game. These mid-ranked SEC teams that are ranked from about like 11 to 20, the home team wins every single time. Ole Miss.
I'm with Luke on this one. Here's the thing. I was high on Texas A&M. They're in my playoff, and I think they finally sort of gotten it into gear. They've kind of figured out the quarterback a little bit, and they dominate on the trenches against most teams because they recruit well. They've been developed well. I think they'll beat Ole Miss. I got Texas A&M, and they just need a little bit of help. But they got a shot if Alabama can lose again, make the SEC championship game, win it. 2-loss Texas A&M with a win against Alabama in the playoff. And Georgia.
Well, the problem is the game Alabama's most likely to lose is Auburn, and if Auburn wins that game, don't they have the advantage over A&M?
Well, how many conference losses does Auburn have?
3.
Okay.
No, 2.
Yeah.
2 conference losses. A&M has 2 conference losses,
Yeah,
and A&M has a tiebreaker.
Does A&M have the tiebreaker? Yeah, they beat
No,
Auburn.
they beat them last week.
Yeah.
All right, Arizona State at Washington.
Arizona State. I mean, Washington has Jimmy Lake's gone, so this team's in a horrible position right now.
ASU.
I'm gonna play the whole coach gone, player motivated card. I'm taking.
But he's
Washington.
not gone. That's the problem, right? He's not gone, is he?
Well, he's gone for this game. He's suspended for the game.
What did they officially suspend him for?
Well, he slapped one of his players in the face.
Jesus Christ. All right, fair enough. I
Well, he
guess.
had his helmet on. He smacked him with his helmet on. He didn't just come up and bitch slap him, but yeah, I'm gonna play that card, taking Washington. And I think Arizona State. I know I was wrong last week. I thought USC was gonna beat them. I think Arizona State's I think they're done mentally. Notre Dame at Virginia.
Now, I'm gonna take Notre Dame, but Bronco Mendenhall screws me every time I pick against them. Every time I say I can't pick against Bronco Mendenhall, and I pick against him. But Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Virginia might have the worst defense in college football. Notre Dame will stop them at least a couple times. I'll take Notre Dame. All right, NC State at Wake Forest.
I'm gonna take NC State.
Yeah, I think Wake Forest.
I don't like NC State. I'm going to take Wake Forest. Arkansas at LSU.
I'll take Arkansas.
Arkansas.
I'm going to take LSU. I like the way they've been playing. Better knowing that Ozier will play better. And it's Arkansas, but they got their talent at least. I'll take Luke.
Yes.
Nevada at San Diego State.
San Diego State.
To be Brady Hoke in San Diego State.
As much as I don't want to pick against Brady Hope, got to go with my guy Carson Strong. It's not really my guy, but I'm taking Nevada. How about this? Utah State is a sneaky 7-2. You know, you don't really think about Utah State being a 7-2, but Blake Anderson's done a nice job there in his first year. They're 7-2. San Jose State, the reigning the reigning Mountain West Conference champions. They've had a tough year. They returned a lot of guys, but they've had a tough year. So Utah State at San Jose State here.
I'll take Utah State.
Utah State.
Great. I'm glad you guys did that. I'm taking San Jose State. All right, the picks. That's it for the picks. Luke is 5 games up on Chris. He made up 1 game on him. Both Luke and I.
Buy back.
Both Luke and I went 18-8. Chris went 19-7. I am still 13 games out, which is good because I've been losing ground lately. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of the Big Four Podcast. And we will see you next